Mythological warriors, basement wormholes, and more teenage angst than an entire season of Euphoria. These small-screen gems go beyond your basic 90s nostalgia. They just can't lose. The much cooler spin-off of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Xena Warrior Princess debuted in 1995 and picked up a massive fan base over its 6-season run, a following that would love to see the series make a return more than 2 decades after its controversial ending. Like Hercules before it, Xena reimagines legendary tales from ancient mythology to create action-packed adventures full of swords and fists. But this series elevates the genre into a tale of empowerment, as former warlord Xena turns away from a life of bloodlust and instead commits to spending her days righting the wrongs of her past with her soulmate Gabrielle by her side. Hardcore fans will recall the show's run ended with Xena sacrificing herself in A Friend in Need, but Xena came back from the dead several times during the show's run, so there's no reason she couldn't be resurrected yet again. While a reboot may not be completely off the table, given the fact that NBC announced one was in early development back in 2015, sadly, Lucy Lawless says she's done playing Xena. Still, a fan can dream. Few sci-fi stories are more ripe for a reboot than Sliders, the episodic 90s series that followed a group of friends sliding through wormholes from one parallel universe to the next in a seemingly hopeless attempt to return to their homeworld. Jerry O'Connell headlined the series about a grad student who starts tinkering with string theory in his basement laboratory. After opening a wormhole to another world, he and a group of friends discover too late that there's no way back. The best they can do is continue sliding through the multiverse, visiting stranger and stranger worlds in their quest to get home. Between today's vastly improved VFX, the growing scientific interest in multiverse theory, and the proliferation of binge-friendly streaming services, now is the perfect time to do this story the justice it deserves with a retelling that fleshes out the lore while staying faithful to the original. There really aren't many good kids' horror series popping off these days. You know, the kind, just spooky enough to give kids a good chill without providing too much nightmare fuel. And that's exactly why we need a revival of the bizarro kids' comedy horror series Eerie, Indiana. The show follows Marshall Teller as his family moves to the town of Eerie, only to find it's a place where alien abductions, alternate dimensions, and dogs plotting world domination are all just part of life as usual. While short-lived, the series amassed a cult following that only grew with its 1998 spin-off Eerie, Indiana: The Other Dimension. Like its predecessor, the sequel was doomed to the same fate every cool, quirky series seemed to meet before the advent of streaming video. But a mid-2020s Eerie, Indiana reboot has a ton of possibilities to succeed as an epic addition to the saga, while tapping into the analog horror vibe that Gen Alphas love so much. It's hard to overstate the cultural impact of the short-lived series My So-Called Life, which starred a teenage Claire Danes as the emotionally turbulent Angela Chase, a typical American teen going through the growing pains of adolescence on the journey to finding her place in the world. My So-Called Life did a good job of depicting the challenges of navigating complex relationships in a time when most people don't quite know themselves yet. Difficult topics like drug use and eating disorders were treated with nuance and dignity, and the show really stood out for its normalized presentation of an LGBTQ character in Angela's good friend Ricky. The series also served as a first break for Jared Leto, who played Angela's high school crush, Jordan. Just as My So-Called Life still stands out as an empathetic and insightful look at the emotional roller coaster of teenage life in the mid-90s, a reboot could examine life for today's teens. We've got an entire generation of kids who missed a year or more of school due to the pandemic lockdown and now face issues like an unprecedented loneliness epidemic and online relationships. They deserve to have their stories told. Decades before Chris Elliott became the mayor of Schitt's Creek, he played a 30-year-old paperboy on the absurdist cringe comedy Get a Life. When the series debuted in 1990, there was really nothing like it on television. Over the course of the show's 2 seasons, the only thing that truly makes sense is the naive little weirdo personality of its central character, performed brilliantly by Elliott, and that's perfectly all right. Read through the show's overwhelmingly positive IMDb reviews, and you'll see a common theme: the firmly held belief that this show was way ahead of its time. Since Elliott has had decades to refine his craft and the world seems to make a lot less sense than it used to, it's a perfect time to check in with our favorite paperboy.
You know, this guy used to be so mean to me. Hey, look who's in better shape now, Wilkinson. Hey, I'm dancing on your grave, old man.
Long before Joe Rogan became a divisive podcaster, he played a handyman in the eccentric workplace comedy Newsradio, alongside a hilarious ensemble cast that included Maura Tierney, Phil Hartman, John Lovitz, and the Kids in the Hall co-creator Dave Foley, among others. Set almost entirely in the office of AM talk radio station WNYX, the series revolves around the workplace lives of the station's co-workers under the direction of their generally out-of-touch billionaire boss. Instead of an unrealistic work-family mythos, Newsradio presents quirky but believably familiar characters and relationships, like the blunt, outlandishly dressed Beth, or the uncomfortable and ultimately unresolved office breakup between Dave and Lisa. Newsradio also often integrated over-the-top storylines that played well against its naturalistic office relationships while providing commentary on many workplace issues of the day, like corporate pressures to turn a profit and gender and race dynamics.
Now just put that out.
Is that decaf?
No, it's regular.
Now imagine a reboot of this series set in the 2020s world of political censorship, corporate buyouts, and fake news. There's so much potential for great storytelling, a reboot would almost write itself. Dave Foley seems amenable to the notion, telling Bleeding Cool in 2022. I would be interested because I love and miss all those people. I'm still friends with all of them. I would love to do anything with any grouping them. 1990s Parker Lewis Can't Lose often felt more like a fever dream than a typical teen comedy. Colorful, caricatural, and charming all at once, the story follows the life and times of Parker Lewis and his tight-knit crew of buds. Airing on Fox for 3 seasons, Parker Lewis was one of the first shows to unite fans through a fervent internet following and has been memorialized by several musical artists, including Childish Gambino, Naughty by Nature, and House of Pain, among others. Many guest stars who either were or would later become famous appeared on the show, including Weird Al Yankovic, Ozzy Osbourne, and Sonny Bono, just to name a few. Part of the show's signature style is the use of fourth wall breaking, self-referential humor, and hyperbolic surrealist elements that seem to convey Parker's perception of reality. Details like gentle giant classmate Kubiak getting so angry he explodes like an atomic bomb, or the new principal who transforms the school into a high-security prison in Saving Grace. And that's to say nothing of the constant deep-cut pop culture and news references that make the series something of a time capsule. A reboot infused with Gen Z or alpha humor and an influencer angle could be equal parts weird and hilarious. Much like Coneheads before it, Third Rock from the Sun was a fish-out-of-water concept about a group of extraterrestrials trying to make it through the everyday challenges of life as regular old human normies. The series follows John Lithgow's High Commander Dick Solomon and his crew Sally, Harry, and oldest crew member Tommy, played by then-teenage Joseph Gordon-Levitt, as they take on human form to study life on our planet the way we would study chimps. To keep the folks back home in the loop on their progress, the crew regularly reports in with the Big Giant Head, played by the one and only William Shatner. While French Stewart has said that there are no plans to reboot the series with the original cast, the story and world building could easily transfer to a whole new crew sent to follow up on the original team's study. To keep things on track, maybe they could bring Harry or Sally on board, which could leave the door open for occasional cameos from the show's bigger-named actors like Lithgow or Gordon-Levitt. Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction was one of those low-effort, guilty pleasures that the world could use more of these days. Originally presented by James Brolin, the series was hosted by Star Trek actor Jonathan Frakes after its first season. Each episode presented a handful of short, often cornily acted stories that were either allegedly true or urban legends, with the viewer kept in suspense as to which was which right up until Frakes dropped the big reveal at the end.
Were there gases trapped within the milk bucket that caused the activity?
Stories ranged from glitch in the Matrix events to seemingly supernatural warnings, with many reflecting the kind of creepypasta you might find nowadays browsing a subreddit. The series was actually revived for the German market, where the show has a cult following, airing from 2021 through 2024 under the name X Factor: The Unfathomable.
Can a fertilized octopus egg ingested into the human system actually grow inside the body?
With more streaming networks pushing for cheap-to-produce content, a shiny new reboot of Beyond Belief could be just what the doctor ordered. Bring on a label-defying producer like Jordan Peele, who found time to produce reboots of Scare Tactics and The Twilight Zone, and it could prove even better than the original series.
This one was invented by a writer.
David Cross's role as Tobias on Arrested Development is easily one of the best comedic performances of the 21st century, while Bob Odenkirk is now a critically acclaimed actor thanks to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But long before any of that would come to pass, both of these legends made a huge splash on their Monty Python-inspired sketch comedy series Mr. Show with Bob and David. Debuting on HBO in 1995, the series is filled with cutting-edge humor and top 90s comedians like Sarah Silverman, Jack Black, and Paul F. Tompkins. Mr. Show with Bob and David did have a sequel of sorts. In 2015, the duo reunited on Netflix for 4 episodes of With Bob and David. Odenkirk told Entertainment Weekly, "What we're doing here is lighter on its feet, quicker moving. It doesn't have the structure of Mr. Show. It's a little more unmoored than Mr. Show in some ways." With Bob and David proved that Cross and Odenkirk still have the goods, but left fans wanting a lot more, so here's hoping a full reboot is in the cards soon. Given the death of Twin Peaks creator David Lynch in January 2025, plus the fact that he brought the show back in 2017 for a long overdue third season, it may seem like an odd candidate for a reboot, and yet there are many reasons to imagine Twin Peaks getting one more chance, not the least of which is the fact that the story was never really finished. Filmed and set decades after the show's original run, the Showtime-produced third season, Twin Peaks: The Return, cranks up the dial on the strange, supernatural, dark, artful, and surreal elements of the original series. And that's really saying something, given how influential the mind and genre-bending original show was when it debuted back in 1990.
Why is this happening?
While Lynch originally intended for fans to interpret many of the show's central questions on their own, he was not entirely opposed to adding yet another chapter to the story. Although no one could replace him, one could imagine someone like Fallout director Jonathan Nolan giving the Twin Peaks story closure in a reboot.